It's Wednesday, April the 29th. Lake level is about 915 and a half. It's actually come up a little bit. They've slowed the generation way down. The water temperature, it seems like no matter where you're at on the lake, it's been hanging in that, 58, 59, low 60s. But that should be fixing to change. It got real warm today in the mid 70s. Got, several days it's going to be in the mid 70s. And not quite as cold at night, so that water temperature should really start to rise. Now, I think the spawn, I don't think it's anywhere near being over with. I might be wrong. We'll find out in the next week. But, I'm finding a lot of fry up in like the upper White River, up in the James River. There's definitely a lot of fish that have spawned out there. But where that temperature has been just hovering right around 60, a lot of the beds that we're seeing are kind of silted up. So I think a couple of weeks ago when that water warmed up into the 60s, we had a wave of fish come in and without a doubt spawned. But we got a full moon and the water temperature is going to rise this next week. I think we're going to see a big wave of fish come in. Now there's a little bit of everything going on. It's still kind of been hard to catch quality fish. I think this past weekend it only took 16 pounds to win, and there was a couple 5-pound fish. But everybody's really piled up in that 11 to 12 pound range. You can catch a lot of 2 and a quarter pound fish. A lot of different things working, and it's kind of going on all over the lake with the exception of the areas where I'm finding more fry, like up in the White and the James. There seems to be, you can catch a few post-spawn fish. A lot of the fish, one of the reasons why I'm saying I don't think the spawn is near over with, I've been backing out a little bit the last 3-4 days where it got colder, and the fish I'm catching out there in 15 to 8, 12 to about 18 foot, none of those fish have spawned. There's no markings on them. Like if I'm up in the White River, you can tell when you catch a post-spawn fish, it'll be a little bit lean. You can see its tail where it's been banding on a bed. But most of the fish in the clearer end of the lake, like from Point 9 down to the dam, up to Big Cedar, I think a lot of them fish haven't spawned yet. And like I say, they're chunkier out there. I'm catching on the points. One of the things I'm doing to catch a little bit better fish is I'm catching them out there on them main lake and secondary points. I've been throwing a Carolina rig quite a bit in a football jig. Now, there's still a ton of fish. If you want to throw that Ned rig, get up in them spawning pockets, up around gravel. You can catch a bunch of fish on the Ned rig. They seem to be getting a little bit smaller. More bucks. Some of the ones that have spawned have moved back out a little bit. But I think with this new wave of fish that's going to come in, there's going to be a ton of good fish, better fish to catch again on the Ned rig. But right now I've been throwing a Carolina rig, and I'm using either a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 weight depending on the wind. And usually I don't use a swivel. I use these little deals, Mann's makes them. It's called a Carolina Keeper to hold the weight in place. Good thing about them, if I got to retie, you just squeeze them, slide them up the line, you only got 1 knot to tie. If you break one off, you just got 1 knot. Now the baits I've been Carolina rigging, I've been throwing a little bit of everything. This is a baby brush hog, green pumpkin. I got the tail dipped a little bit in chartreuse. Green pumpkin will work, watermelon red. But I've also been Carolina rigging a Zoom Fish Doctor and a little bit fatter worm Zoom makes. It's called a dead ringer. It's been working real good too. Now you can rig up a miniature Carolina rig on a spinning rod, do the same thing. For the most part, I'm setting the boat in 20, 25 foot of water and staying on the outside edge of the points, casting up to about 8 to 10 and working it off the sides of it. Now I'm not getting a lot of bites out there, but the bites I'm getting are better. And what we're doing is we're mixing it up with a football jig. This football jig here is a pig sticker. I'm throwing a 1/2 ounce and a 5/8. If you're throwing it on spinning gear, I'd suggest throwing like a 3/8. The 2 colors that seem to be working the best is a green pumpkin orange, and I've got a baby rage craw on there for a trailer. This one here is a magic craw. This is the color. And I've got a Strike King Rage chunk on it. It's got a little bit more tail action. Now I'm throwing the jigs a little bit more if I get around brush piles. And I am fishing some of the conservation brush piles. Now a lot of the conservation piles are out there 30, 35 feet. I'm keying on the ones that are 18 to 20 foot. And we're catching a little bit better fish out of them. There are some schooling fish. We're catching some of those on a jointed redfin, a storm thunderstick, another bait I've been throwing. It's about the same size as a spook, but it's got 3 hooks, and it's a sexy dog made by Strike King. This bait throws real good. It's got real good rattles in it. What I like about it over a spook is I don't have to twitch it as hard to make it walk. It'll walk real good on short little twitches. You can cast it a little further, and I like the 3rd hook on it, and it's the same size as a regular size spook. Another bait you can still catch them on. I've been throwing a Keitech. We were throwing a lot of the 2.8s, but it seems like the 3.8 is working a little bit better. Still not a whole lot of suspended fish, even with the swim bait. Most of these fish, we're trying to keep this bait on bottom or just on bottom. A lot of the main lake gravel, we're catching a lot of smallmouths on it, especially when the wind is, you know, almost blowing too hard where it's hard to fish a split shot or Carolina rig. And I just take a ball-headed jig. I've got a 5/16 ounce jig head on this, and I'll throw it on 6 or 8 pound line. And like I said, let it go down the bottom, set the boat at about 20, 22 feet. In a few days this week, we've seemed like we've had to back the boat out to 25 to 30 and fish the bait down about 18 to 20 feet. Like I say, when that cold came in, it seemed like it pulled a lot of the fish back out deeper. But I expect that to change the next couple days. As the water warms up, the fish should start to move shallower. But probably one of the most consistent bites as far as for, you know, 2 to 3 pound fish has been on the Carolina rig or the football jig. A lot of main lake gravel points. You kind of want to look for areas where you think the fish are going to spawn, and these fish are out there on the points waiting to go in. The good thing about it, it's something that's going to hold up for several more weeks, because as the fish get done spawning, they're going to come right back out to them same points. Now, like I said earlier, up in the White River, I'm catching a lot of fish that have already spawned out there, some that haven't yet. So, and then down in the clearer water, I think there's going to be a big wave of fish, you know, move up in the next week. So, you know, fishing the size of the fish, hopefully the quality will start getting better. We haven't had any problem catching numbers, and that's mainly due to that Ned rigging around the spawning areas. My fluke bite has kind of slowed down, and the Senko bite that I was throwing in the spawning coves, and I think that's because a lot of the fish that were in them areas got through spawning and left. But if I'm right about another wave coming in, then that fluke bite and Senko bite is going to do nothing but get better again. You know, you can go back in them pockets and really not see very many fish cruising. I think that's going to change in the next week or so. And I think it's going to happen fast, because these fish are overdue and they're ready to go in and get it over with. So you're going to get out there fishing this weekend. Oh, another thing, if you guys have been looking for any of the rock crawlers, the spros, I know if you're trying to find them, every place has been out of them and back ordered. I was over at Sportsman Factory Outlet today, and they got an order of the rock crawlers coming in. But if you're going to go over there just for them, you might want to call them and ask them and see if they got them in. They're expecting them, I think, midweek, so Wednesday or so. Jim said they should have them. So till next week, good luck, good fishing.